The following is an Operation Podcast production.
Are you ready for a wild ride? I'm Alexis Artin, and I invite you to strap in because this is more than a podcast. This is Look at Me Now. It is totally allowed and possible for us not to shame whatever our bodies look like, even the thin white.
Trigger warning, I experienced sexual assault for the first time when I was a teenager. It was something that I didn't fully have the language for until I was an adult. Like, I didn't even realize, like, oh, that was sexual assault.
That's what that was, right?
Yes, until a decade later. It could take you time to get there. And then when you get there, it's almost like re-traumatizing yourself all over again. Because you're like, okay. My motto has kind of been jump and build the parachute on the way down. So take messy action. But especially like recovering perfectionists, don't think so much that you never do a thing, right?
Authenticity. It's, to me, the barrier to entry. It is everybody has the power. If they deeply, deeply listen to themselves, they are going to hear very clearly whether or not what they're taking in feels authentic to them.
100%. I was like,
I have got another treat in the form of a guest for you today. Her name is Emily Duncan, and she is fierce AF, okay? She is the host of EmBody Radio. She is the CEO of Fenix Athletica. Check the spelling. It's with an F, y'all. And it ends in an X. I mean, it's crazy. And she is a personal development mentor, and she is just a blast in the studio. You have got to check this out. It's already happening.
It's already happening.
It's already happening. We are rolling. This is Look at Me Now. And I mean, people, I love that I get to do this. I love that I get to do this.
Isn't it so weird?
I love that I'm in real life right now, in real time with Emily Duncan. Emily Duncan is a podcast host of EmBody Radio, which I was actually a guest on.
Such a good episode. We got to link it in the show notes.
I mean, it was just, we're going to link it in the show notes.
I was ready to run through a brick wall after that episode.
Yes.
I feel like it's going to be the same today.
Supercharged. Fucking supercharged. And she's also the CEO of Fenix Athletica, which is spelled with an F. So check yourself before you wreck yourself looking that up. And your Instagram is fire. And I can't believe I just said fire because I'm 45 years old, but that's fine.
I won't let that one go.
And welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Like, this is my first ever podcast trip. So I've had a podcast for 7 years, and it's just been in my little house, my office, all the things. This is my first ever podcast trip and my first ever in-person episode for somebody else's show. So this is so fun, so exciting. The vibes are already high.
Yeah.
It's just super great to be here. And like you're saying, like, I can't believe that I get to do this sometimes. I've been a content creator for over 10 years at this point, which is like wild to say. But it still blows my mind every single day that I get to just sit down and have fun conversations as part of my job. Like,
yeah.
insane.
And, it's so funny because let's just start here. Content creator. Like, aren't we all creating content all the time, which like is the art of our lives?
Right.
Right. And I love that, you are not just the CEO of a fitness company, not just the host of EmBody Radio, also more of like a personal development mentor who is a content creator. Every time I sit down with somebody, I always marvel at how complex and how diverse and how broad the spectrum is of what it means to be human.
That's why I hate niches. I'm like, you're not a niche. You are a multi-dimensional, multifaceted person. And like, I refuse to be pinned down.
Yes.
By like one narrow thing.
Well, and just before we started rolling, you and I were sharing the struggle of how do you explain the range, right, of all of the things that you are, that you do, that you're passionate about, that you're skilled at, that, it's like, sometimes just so overwhelming to cram that into a sentence or a phrase or a word.
Yes.
It's phenomenal. Anyway, let's do what we do on this podcast. I mean, because really, let's do what we do. Yes. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. Little Emily.
Yeah. So I do indeed have kind of like a very clear trajectory of kind of how I got from where I was to where I am now. So I
plant the roots for us. Let's get down in the dirt of where it began.
Right. So we talked about how, we both grew up in performing arts. So I started in classical ballet. And from the jump, like taking it way back to birth, I came out of my mother. And one of the doctor's first words, my mom loves to tell this story, is, "Oh my God, look at those thighs." So I've always been a muscular person from the time I was little up until now. Like that's always been a thing. Growing up in classical ballet, obviously not a body type that was or is very celebrated, right? And I will never forget when I was 8 years old. I was 8. That was the age where you could be kind of promoted from the kind of standard, just like taking class type student into what was called PTD, which was the professional training division, which was the feeder into the full-fledged ballet company. So that was like a stepping stone to, hey, you're going to be one of like the core company dancers, right? And so we were getting our like ballet report cards at the end of the year, and all of my marks for technique, for professionalism, for performance quality, respect, showing up in class, like all of the things, right, that actually matter, top marks. Then at the bottom in bright red letters, my teacher, Miss Barbara, wrote, "Emily will not be admitted to PTD because she does not have a dancer's body type."
Oof, let that land.
Yeah.
Fuck, let that land.
8 years old. And so because that was at the time, and, even throughout high school, like all I wanted to be was a dancer. That was what and who I wanted to be. So from a very young, impressionable age, being told that, hey, the way that your body, like the core message to that to me, like how that was processed in my little teeny tiny brain was the way that your body looks and is naturally will always hold you back from what you want to be.
And it's just not good enough.
Mm-hmm. So that really planted so many seeds of just like shame around my body. I remember I would not wear shorts until I was in high school. Like I wouldn't wear shorts. I wouldn't wear dresses. I was so just like, I didn't want anybody to see my legs. I was like, oh my God, these are like different. And also too, like I grew up in a very white suburban neighborhood. Like white beauty is harmful for all of us, right? Like thin white beauty is harmful for all of us, right? But especially when you don't have like that, stereotypical kind of white beauty standard body type. And I didn't see anybody around me really that looked like me. And even like in my own family, like I kind of inherited some of the more like tall muscular genes from my dad versus like the tall lanky genes from my mom. So there weren't a lot of especially women around me that looked like me. So I carried a lot of shame about my body and how it looked into just my entire life. And, even into high school, I kept dancing. I started going to a different studio when I was in middle school, and I switched from like classical ballet to competitive dance. So more like contemporary hip hop, all that stuff. So a little bit more accepting, but I was definitely not taking care of my body. I was eating probably sub 1,000 calories a day when I was dancing, 20 plus hours a week. Right. I was having an apple and a Cliff Bar for lunch at school. Like that was nowhere near enough. Then I'd have like vegetable soup before class and I wouldn't eat, So definitely some like unhealthy, disordered eating behavior, right? And so then my junior year of high school, I had a career-ending injury. So I tore like 5 muscles in my left hip. I tried continuing to dance on it. Like I made it through auditions. I got, a lot of the parts that I wanted, but then it got to a point where like I would be trying to hold my leg in a passe and it would get stuck. And I would have to like physically push it down. And so my physical therapists were finally like, hey, if you don't take some time off, you're going to have surgery. And I did not want to go that route. So there were some other things kind of transpiring just in my life and in the studios that I was at the time. And I kind of made the decision like, hey, we're going to kind of put this to rest kind of a thing. And it was definitely one of the hardest decisions I've ever made in my life. I was planning on going to college for triple threat, singing, dance, theater. Like that was the plan. And so then I was like, well, we're going to turn that plan on its head. And that's kind of where universe interceded. And as part of my rehab for my hip injury, that's when I found the gym. So that's when I graduated from PT. I had a friend at the time whose mom was a personal trainer at our local Urban Active. And so I would just like go with her and her mom sometimes. And that was kind of turning point for me of, oh, this is a place where I can be strong, where I should be strong, where I don't have to be small. Like, you start being around more muscular, strong women, and you're like, oh, we do exist. Like,
Permission granted.
Yes, permission granted. And so then I am both super nerdy and very neurodivergent. So I love a good new like thing to obsess over, right? So I love learning about things. I love learning all the ins and outs. And I was getting ready to go to college. Obviously, that was the end of my junior year. So then heading into my senior year, like deciding what I'm going to do. So I go like research mode. I'm like, I need to learn every single thing about lifting, about nutrition. Learning about nutrition really turned everything on its head, because like my old dance teacher at the ballet studio, she wouldn't let certain snacks be sold at the front because they had too many calories. Like, that's the environment that we were in. Absolutely. Versus learning like, oh, you need to eat enough. You need to eat more to fuel what you're doing and to take care of yourself. So then I decided, I originally went into college as a dietetics major. I ended up not loving kind of like the government regulation recommendations for nutrition. I just didn't agree with a lot of them. So I switched to exercise science. So that was really where, like, again, everything kind of started. And that's when I started competing in bodybuilding. So I was like, let's go like 100% with this thing. Like, if we're going to, because I loved, you know, having something to channel my drive into. I went from dancing over 20 hours a week to like nothing, right? So I was like, oh, new thing that I can do. And so then that's kind of where, you know, I was a freshman in college. I was in, you know, a really unhealthy relationship at the time. It was a long distance relationship. And he was like, you're not allowed to go out. You're not allowed to make friends. Like, you're not allowed to do this, that, the other thing. So like, I was going to the gym, I was going to the class, and I was watching educational YouTube videos on fitness and nutrition, like in my free time. So
you keep gravitating to high control environments and relationships. Okay, I'm tracking.
And the great thing about that is that what got me out of that relationship was the more that I was in the gym and the more that I was training and the more that I was seeing my own progress and truly
discovering your own strength.
100% for the first time. I was like, I don't like being under somebody's thumb. I don't like, that's not me. I've always been kind of like this ferocious, like a biting life kind of woman. And like, I think, you know, I'd had, before I entered that relationship, I had some really, really traumatic things happen in my own life. And so I was like, you know, I'm going to like make myself small for a little bit. Right. And so I tolerated that.
Yeah. Can we dive into that a little bit?
Let's double click.
So first of all, I want to just put in bold underline that it is not only allowed, but totally possible. People watching, listening, this is for you, as well as beautiful Emily here. It is totally allowed and possible for us not to shame whatever our bodies look like, even the thin white.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, there is no wrong. There is no right.
100%.
We do not have to assign stories to our physical form. We are given a body that is designed to provide the opportunity for us to utilize the design of the body to its fullest degrees. So, you know, it's so funny. Like, sometimes in my embodiment work, when I say like, let's get onto a hands and knees posture and circle your hips in that posture. Oh my God. Forget making a sound in that posture, right? Like, there is so much that locks and freezes and the limbic system just resists, and it's fight or flight or freeze time.
Yes.
And not that I can't completely validate and understand why that happens in bodies, but what if it were just a body moving the way a cat would stretch on all fours or whatever? It's like, we don't assign a story to it. What if we didn't assign stories to the design of our body and all the possibilities of the way that it is designed to move and to exist and to express itself and move through the world?
Yes.
I always say our soul is our why and our body is our how. So if we just let the why, our purpose of being here, our energy that embodies our matter, move through the world without layering on all of this unnecessary story to it, we are going to stop hitting upper limits of what's possible for us. So I just want to say that for little Emily's sake, and for anybody else who's listening and harbors serious stories about what shape they take in the world. Right? It's like, what if we just looked at each and every body as if we were gazing upon a beautiful landscape somewhere?
Because we are. You know, I think that's like one of the coolest things. Like, obviously, the rest of the animal kingdom, there is a lot of diversity amongst like different animals and stuff like that. But I think in the human form, especially the female form, we really get to see that shine when we stop, like you said, trying to assign like this is how this one is supposed to look and this is how this one's supposed to look, and instead maybe embrace like, this is what my natural, healthy, functioning, abundant, vibrant body wants to do. Like, how can I celebrate that?
Absolutely. That it's, and again, this podcast so much about removing that external gaze.
Yes.
That being said, I want to slow and replay the tape back.
Yes.
To when you were in this dance environment that was really high control, and a lot of it you internalized, obviously, as we all do when we're young and we are in an environment where we don't have as much choice. We don't have as much agency, right? Because we're young and we're reliant on these external forces. But was dancing and all of that like intrinsic for you? Was it something that you're like, I want this for myself? Or did you feel an expectation that you needed to continue to pursue it?
Yeah. What's super interesting is I was in dance so young that I don't remember starting it. Like, my mom put us in dance, my sister when she was 1 and me when I was 1.5. So it's something that was just kind of ingrained from a really young age. And I do firmly believe that I loved it so much, especially as I got older. I think there were also parts where, because, and we have a great relationship now, but my mom and I had a really tense relationship growing up. It's actually because we're very, very similar and would butt heads a lot, but like, you don't know that when you're a kid. But dance and fashion were both areas from like a young age where my mom and I weren't fighting and we were getting along and we were bonding. So I do think there was definitely an aspect of like my relationship to my mom that I played out through dance. I've also definitely been, and I don't necessarily know where this comes from, but I've always been, and it's funny because now I coach these people, which is how it always works, but I've always been a high-performing, high-achieving person. So from like the two sides of the same coin, like from the maybe less positive, I avoid saying negative because, you know, it's not wrong or right or neutral, but I liked having a metric to meet, and I liked having a box to check, and I liked being able to achieve and have that acknowledged, and, you know, from the positive side, like do hard things and, you know, see all of that come to fruition and all of that stuff. So it was a combination of really, really fun, like as a little kid getting to do Nutcracker every Christmas, super, super fun. But also that deep kind of ingrained drive of like, I want to perform, not just in like the artistic way, but like I want to perform. I want to make my teachers proud. I want to make my mom proud.
There we go. So
Yes.
it's because it's so interesting because I grew up a dancer as well, and I started dancing around the same age as you, and how much of that world, right? Because I was a dancer, I was a singer, I was an actress, same as
Look
you.
at us,
Same as you.
Look at us.
And so much of that was rooted in external validation. So much of that was rooted in a performance that was not for personal fulfillment and enjoyment, although I may have gotten some of that from it.
Right.
But a lot of it was, can you see me? Can you validate me? Is it good enough? Am I going to get the applause? Am I going to get the flowers? Am I going to get other opportunities? Are people going to like me? Are people going to love me? Right? And so there is something baked into that, right? That becomes our metric of how are we measuring ourselves and our worth and our value. Are we worthy of that applause? Are we worthy of that opportunity? Are we worthy of that validation or not? And it's this external metric.
Right. You're never asking like, am I giving myself my flowers?
Right.
You're not taught that as a little kid, especially not like in a performance
Not at
environment.
all.
And then you get to adulthood and you're like, I don't know where my confidence self-worth comes from, huh? Like, what is that?
And you imagine this, you complete a performance. You've just blood, sweat, and tears, exhausted. You're done. You're on stage. You've left it all out there. And there's not one person applauding. The whole venue is just gazing up at you.
Your butthole just
in
clenches.
judgment.
You're just like, ugh.
Right? how are we walking off that stage and not letting that mean anything about our worth, about our value, about what's possible for us, right? Like that's what we're learning unconsciously, albeit because we're so young at that age, right? Or not learning for better to better state.
We have to learn it in like a decade when we're
crying,
dark night of the soul, like
crying on the phone with
like,
our therapist or our coach, right?
Yes.
Exactly. And then running into that lesson over and over and over again, like you're beating your head against a brick wall. Okay, so now doubling back to you saying there was some traumatic events. Can you unpack some of that for us?
Absolutely. So trigger warning, I experienced sexual assault for the first time when I was a teenager. It wasn't any family. It was something that it was just a guy that I knew like from growing up. And it was something that I didn't fully have the language for until I was an adult. Like I didn't even realize like, oh, that was sexual assault.
That's what that was, right?
Yes. Until a decade later. So I really started, and it's funny because my brain and my body knew and it's funny because also funny, I have huge holes around the experience in my memory because when you experience trauma, a lot of the time the brain will remove you and you won't have a full memory of it. So
which is a protection mechanism.
Right. And so there was also, the whole kind of time, I would kind of, diminish it or kind of tell myself like, oh, you don't fully remember what happened. So like, it couldn't be that kind of a thing. Just kind of like, in a way gaslighting myself. But I experienced sexual assault for the first time when I was actually around the same time that I was leaving dance. So when my injury was the worst, it all lined up like really perfectly and imperfectly to be losing this one big thing and then having this giant thing over here happen. And so experiencing sexual assault, but not knowing that's what I experienced, but knowing that something was really wrong and that I was really hurt and not really feeling so much shame. Feeling so much shame for what happened, feeling so much shame for like how it was handled and all of that, and just not knowing what to do, I just shoved it all down.
It's a total reorganization of your identity.
Shoved it all down.
Yeah.
That's when I had always been like a, straight edge kid. I started drinking that summer. I started drinking to dissociate as soon as I learned that like, hey, you do this, you drink enough of this, and you will leave your body for a while. And which was also a really weird thing to want to do as somebody that spent so much time in their body growing up through dance and performing and all that stuff. So I lost what, was going to be my future, was going to be my life, was like my entire concept of identity up until that point through dance. This happens. I start participating in just really unhealthy behaviors. And then, lo and behold, I find myself in this relationship where guy was nice enough, but was very much so like I said, you're under my thumb kind of a thing. And not in like the typical way where you're like, it's puff chest, big ego kind of thing. Just super Christian, super like, oh, God this, God that. And like, I'm a very spiritual person. So like, I'm not against any of that, but just the approach to it, it was just interesting to go from somebody that was so strong and so self-assured and so fierce to somebody that was so small and so ashamed and so confused and lost and didn't have that sense of self and that sense of directedness that I had always had. It was much easier for me to just kind of be, I don't want to say be manipulated, but be told what to do. Because
it's like a regression. It's a regression to keep yourself.
And I didn't trust myself anymore, So it was kind of a complete loss of everything that I'd known myself to be.
I so want to honor that you are courageous and vulnerable enough to share that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And it's not just, not just for sharing it with me, but sharing it with everybody that is listening, because
this
is
the
not
first
an
podcast I've shared it on.
Oh my!
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say I feel honored,
but you should.
because it's it's a mixed bag.
Right.
But what I really want to say to you is, when people do courageously and vulnerably share these things, it is a gift, because it is not an uncommon tale. It's actually more common than most people are aware of, especially having worked in female empowerment for as long as I have and working with as many women as I have.
What is it, like 1 in 5?
It's more. Jeez. It's more. And I feel like there is such a validation for people of hearing, oh, I'm not alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, I'm not alone. This is actually more common than I've maybe given, credit to.
Right. Well, I think what's even more common that people don't realize is like, because it's now happened to me twice in my life, and neither experience was like, being dragged by my hair into a back alley by a stranger, right? And I think that's to this day the definition of sexual assault that a lot of people have, when in reality it often looks very, very different.
And oftentimes it does couple with self-gaslighting.
Yeah.
Minimizing the experience, and, trying to assign a story to the experience to either make it make sense or to make it your fault or to come to terms with it in a way that isn't necessarily the truth of what happened.
Right. And
I think that there is just a beautiful opportunity for people to do that shadow work, right? Yeah. To expose it to the sunlight being the greatest disinfectant that there is.
100%. And like I said, it took me 10 years to unpack that experience, to unpack one that happened with somebody like that I was very, very close to in my 20s. Like it's also a thing where these things could be sitting and they're not dormant, right? Because they are affecting how you show up in everyday life down to a nervous system level, right? But like it could take you time to get there. And then when you get there, it's almost like re-traumatizing yourself all over again. Because you're like, okay, we have language for the experience now. My body is experiencing all of this all over again, kind of a thing.
And thank you, body, for these tools. Yes. Thank you, body, for these tools. Thank you for the dissociation. So that in that moment, I didn't have to rely on something else happening that could have been way worse. Like being fully present for the experience or whatever else, thank you, gaslighting, because it was just strategy for me to be able to move on in whatever way I knew how or was the best I could do at the time.
Right.
And, thank you for higher learning so that I could come to a different understanding and a different relationship with myself as I continually reorganize my identity. 100%. But I want to, circle around to this idea of your mess becoming your message. Not that it's a mess. It's not. It's beautiful. It's fucking beautiful.
Mess, I love a good, I love some, I have a quote on my phone background that said, in all chaos, there's calculation. And
totally.
I fully believe that. 100%.
I mean, one of my favorite things in the world is like that concept of a beautiful mind. Like if I flip through, if you were to look at any of my like journals and notebooks that I keep constantly, I call it the beautiful mind because it looks like total disorganized chaos.
You open one page and it's a completely different book than the other one.
But I look at it and I go, it's genius.
Same. No, I keep every journal. I have like a library of old journals from the last 5 years. It's like this thick that I keep in my office because I'm like, I'm going to want to reference this again. This is brilliant.
Brilliant. Everybody witness this mad genius.
My lore is here.
Yeah. Hello. Fucking low. Okay. So, I mean, circling this all around to like your mess becoming your message, your beautiful mind moment here. Yeah. Like, how you got into the gym and then everything started to reshape. Everything started to reformulate and repopulate. And, it's taking that shame and turning it into service, turning it not just into self-love, but how do I serve with this?
Yeah.
Right? That's when we go real deep. That's the deepest stuff right there. So walk me through that.
Yeah, of course. So it's truly one of my favorite stories because it's one of those times like in life where it really felt like I was so held by, whatever higher power there is, whatever guidance, whatever there is, because it was like dominoes. It was like dominoes when you're on the right path. Like it's not necessarily going to be easier without friction, but like the dominoes were just falling into place. So I start, training. I'm in the gym, studying exercise science in college. I end up, as I'm kind of leaving that more controlling relationship, because I had such a hard time my first semester of college, I decided to transfer back home and take a semester off. Transferring back home and taking that semester off landed me in my first job in strength and conditioning. I was some girl that I went to high school with, worked for the guy that owned the gym that I ended up becoming an assistant strength coach at. So that was my first kind of job in the actual industry. I like worked front desk at the gym, when I moved back home, but like actual job where I'm using my intelligence and I'm using my skills. At the same time, I'm starting to compete in bodybuilding. I'm posting on Instagram at a time when it's not really like a thing to do yet, right? It was pretty new. This was like 2014 timeframe. So posting a lot of fitness content. I've always been pretty good at writing. So people really like latched on to how like honest and open and vulnerable I was, and also just like a fun person that's like taking people along for the ride of their own fitness journey, getting this job, all the things. So I'm like right place, right time, right effort over and over and over and over again. So my following starts growing, and by the time we get to 2015, so the end of 2015, I've received so many requests from people of, do you coach, do you coach, do you coach? Because they've seen my journey, they see that I'm science-based, they see that I'm kind of somewhat of like an antithesis to like the clean eating hardcore bro approach that had been really popular from like the early 2000s up until then. So I actually had somebody point out to me on a podcast where they were interviewing me that this has been my motto, but my motto has kind of been jump and build the parachute on the way down. So take messy action, follow like the path, have enough structure and enough intention and enough of a plan to get you there. But especially like recovering perfectionists, don't think so much that you never do a thing, right? So I was like, yeah, I coach. Yep, let's do it. Let's do the thing. I'm going to build out the whatever. And I launched my coaching business. I look back on this 20-year-old version of me. I'm 20 at the time. Insane. College, working full-time, doing all the things. I'm like, sure, let's start a business. I launched my business on Snapchat. I was like, hey guys, I'm coaching now. So if you're interested, just like send me an email. Like, no launch, no funnel.
And that's how you do it, people. Yes. You do not need to buy these $5,000 build your business in 30 days courses.
You just need trust.
Start a Snapchat.
Yeah, you go on Snapchat, you've built trust with an audience.
Let's go.
Have and you do it, right? But
courageous imperfect action.
Yes.
Jump in the net will appear.
Yes.
All the phrases that you hear out there, they're
100%.
cliche, but they're there for a reason. And it's because 9 out of 10 people, it's like, I'm not just doing this on TV. I'm actually a doctor.
Right. I'm actually doing these things and I'm like qualified to do them. Right. And the summer before, so summer of 2014, I was on a radio interview in the town where I grew up. I was part of this like kind of project called Project Driven, which Josh Reed, the guy that ran it, we still follow each other to this day. He's thriving, all this stuff, but dreams require intense vision and endless navigation. That was what it stood for. And I was the only girl. It was me and then 3 guys. And so the woman that was interviewing, she obviously was a woman. And so she was like, Emily, if you could tell young girls out there listening one thing, what would it be? And this was one of my first like mantras that really resonated with people. And it was become your own Wonder Woman, find out what makes you strong and what makes you awesome and run with it. So instead of trying to like listen to what the outside world is telling you to be, find out what makes you strong and what makes you awesome and run with it. So I was just always somebody and always a woman, like after going through all of that I was like, and I didn't consciously think of it, but I was just like, I'm just going to be me. I'm just going to be me. I'm going to show up in my authenticity. If it's what everybody else is doing, cool. If it's not, cool. I'm just going to be me and I'm going to do what feels right for me. And I'm going to do what feels aligned and authentic with my values as a person. And doing that, I have never once failed. I've never once failed.
Well, it's one of my mentors always says, why do you want to be second best at being somebody else when you can be the first best at being yourself? Mm-hmm. And there is so much influence in our world right now and so much expectation that we have of ourselves, whether it's the size of our thighs or how many followers we have or what the number is on the scale or in our bank account or our followers or this or that, right? There is so much riding on those external metrics. Here we go back to that, right? And, a woman ahead of her time saying out loud, do you. Yeah. Be you. It's more than enough. Like find what makes you uniquely powerful and run with it. 100%. Of course you launched a freaking movement on that message. Yes.
I have this saved as a screenshot on my phone. Someone literally, like they worked at like an elementary school, I think. And she sent me a photo one day. She's like, I painted this as a mural on the girls' bathroom. Sobbed, just Kim K ugly cry. Like that was one of those messages where I was like, this not only is a good thing for you to do, but you have to keep doing this. You have to stay authentic. You have to stay true because there are women that trust you to be that. And like, I think there's something that like, I don't hear enough content creators talk about. Like, yeah, you can be grateful for the community that you have. And that's an important step one, but like, do you hold reverence for what that means? Do you actually understand what it means for someone? You are a stranger. Like you could be crafting a completely false image. I think people are starting to see through that a little bit, but like some people are really good at crafting images. Like, you have to show up and show the fuck up if people are going to trust you in that way, follow you, buy from you. In my case, like women trusting me with their bodies and their physical health, like there's a reverence that should be held for that. And that was one of those core moments when I was like, okay, man, you got to do this right. And if you fuck up, you got to own it. Like, you got to do this the way that you have positioned yourself to be someone that does this.
Authenticity. Mm-hmm. It's to me the barrier to entry. It is 100%. It is everybody has the power to really see through to the truth.
Yeah.
If they deeply, deeply listen to themselves, if they deeply, deeply listen to themselves, they are going to hear very clearly whether or not what they're taking in feels authentic to them.
Yes. And I think something too that I actually, because I started as a solopreneur, now I run a team, and I was actually just having a session with one of my coaches that works within my company the other day about like essentially helping her show up more authentically online. And like one of the things that we kind of arrived at was she was like, I feel like there is this version of me that's real and there's this version of me that I'm supposed to be, kind of a thing, and that like gets in the way of me creating. And so I just kind of had a sheet of paper, like split it, like a giant sheet of paper on my wall. And I was like, okay, what's on this side? What's on this side? What is who you actually are? What do you feel like you're supposed to be? And like one of the things that was like just very genuine for her was like, I'm honestly like pretty boring. I like to stay home. I like to be cozy. I like to just like be in my little space. I'm not a huge like go out drinker type person. And I'm like, bitch, same. Like, and I love talking about branding now. That's like kind of a next evolution for me. I'm like, that's a brand. Everything about you that you think is weird or strange or like the people aren't going to like, that's the thing you double click on, because that's the thing, like that's where your people are going to come from. Like I posted about baking sourdough and how I love raccoons. Like you wouldn't believe how many raccoon memes people send me. Like but like that's the weird things, you know, but the things that people love because they're the things
authenticity is magnetic. Yes. There is a magnetism for truth.
Yes. And
people are hungry for truth.
100%. Because even like I think what happened with social media was obviously people were like over the kind of celebrity fourth wall kind of thing. And so social media comes around and they're like, oh, people are just like being real and showing their lives. But now there's so much of social media that happens with a fourth wall up.
Yeah. The nuances of what is true, right? That only truth can offer, right? Like the raccoon thing, right? Like that right there is the reason that somebody will invest in you, emotionally invest in you and otherwise invest in you, because it is authentic, because it is the truth. And there is so much noise out there that can often register on that inauthentic side. So this is note to anybody out there, by the way, not just somebody that's looking to generate a brand or to, you know, be public facing and attract an audience or create a community, but really anybody that feels like I can't walk into a room full of strangers and just be myself. This is important stuff, right? Yes. Making that list of who am I really and who do I feel like I need to show up as?
So powerful.
Right? Do I have to show up as the person that wears a full face of makeup because I don't feel safe to show up as I truly am? But I'm the most comfortable when I'm home and I'm not wearing makeup. Right? I go back to this thing about your thighs. And if your thighs could speak, if your thighs could speak, if they had a voice and your beautiful mind wasn't getting in the way of what your thighs had to say, what do you think your thighs would say?
Oh, I'm so powerful. And I just might have been placed in the wrong environment.
And can you just love me?
Yeah, 100%. For what I am, for what I have, like just, not even for what I have to offer. Actually, I'll run that back. Like just for how I exist, because I think too, like, obviously there are things that we love ourselves for, like traits, qualities, whatever, but like there has to be some level. And like, this is how I know I truly love someone in my life, where I'm like, I love you for no reason. And
that's so unconditional love.
100%.
That's source of unconditional love. That's what that is. It's bringing it to your body.
Yes.
shameless plug. That's what my practice Soul Sway is all about, is bringing your soul to your body, bringing the energy of unconditional love to your physical form so that you can inhabit your body without any inhibition, which was plastered on you literally, as you shared, from the moment that you were born. What the actual F are we talking about here?
And it took just as much time to like repattern it.
Totally. And that's one moment in time. Like, let's just parlay that into you're not getting into this dance company because you don't have that kind of body. Couple that with the a million other insults, limitations, judgments, externally and internally, that you have continued to pile on this poor, sweet body of yours. I mean, what really, people? Like, if your body could speak, every little inch of you, what would it say? Right? Like, what would it ask you for? How much have you accepted and bullied your body into accepting? Right? Like, holy smokes.
Well, I think that's such a cool exercise too. Like, how people do body scans, just like, how am I feeling? Instead of how am I feeling, like, what do you have? Like,
yeah, we teach soul body scans as part of our practice because it is so necessary that we are going through on a regular basis all of the input.
Well, I think too, for women, like, having oftentimes such like a narrowly defined idea of what our bodies are supposed to look like, the amount of, and I've seen this with clients and like helping liberate them from this, has been the honor of a lifetime. But the amount of time, money, effort, energy that women spend trying to force their body into a very narrowly defined ideal. What could you do if you were spending your time, energy, money, effort elsewhere, on things that really lit you up, on things that made you so excited to be alive that you weren't even thinking about how your body looked? What if we could... Right?
What if you and I came in here and we didn't do our hair and we didn't do our makeup and we wore our sweatpants? By the way, I feel like we are the type of people that could probably do that.
Right.
100%. And we may have some squirms about it, but like, we could do it and we could walk away
100%.
and still have some tools in our back pocket to go, it's all good.
Yes.
Like,
and I would have just as much fun.
And we would have just as much fun, but it would take some work, right?
Even
like, there is a reason we do the thing, right?
Even just the work of explaining why we did that, instead of like, oh, that's different. Like, oh, that, like, the mental energy expended on why we chose to show up a certain way.
Right.
I think we need a little bit more of just like male audacity as a female population. Like, not that men don't put effort into themselves, but they just kind of show up.
Right. Because we have equal masculine and feminine inside of us. And this is why we need to do our Boots in a Bra podcast.
No, I'm literally...
People, I'm
so in on this. Like, I'm actually going to be so sad
We decided before filming this podcast that we were going to create a new one called Boots in a Bra. If you're into it, please tell us, because we will legit start it.
I will do it.
We just derailed, but it felt like an important moment. Okay, so circling back, snaking back. God, we're all over the place because we are in our wild feminine.
I love it so much.
Okay, so in this present moment, right, all of this has been like baked into this delicious, yummy pie that is all of the things that you are and that you offer to the world. Like, tell me, where are you now? Like, what is juicy about now?
What's juicy about now is I feel like for the first time in almost 9 years since I started my business, I'm really embracing a beginner's mindset again, because I'm starting to offer new things. I'm starting to offer more. I've been kind of like quietly doing the personal, spiritual, business development, mentorship one-on-one for 3 years, but I haven't been super out there about it. Or like, I'm crafting an offer strictly centered around like branding and feeling really rooted in your business as a creative entrepreneur. That's something that I've never touched that kind of side of life before, but it's stuff that I am so excited about. So it's that kind of tension point. It's a huge personal development moment, right? Huge kind of like identity upgrade moment, right? And all of that sounds as like a personal development coach, like so fun and good and like woohoo, exciting. And also like I'm coming up against all the things that come when you face an identity shift. Like, who am I to be doing this? What if nobody wants it? What if nobody? And it's funny, you talk about like, what if nobody's clapping? And the thing that keeps me showing up and doing it is realizing how much fun I'm having doing it. And that's exactly how me starting Fenix, it used to be Emily Duncan Fitness because I was 20 and named it after myself. But it's exactly how I felt when I did that. I was just following the flow of my joy and of my passion. So for me, it's really, and also too alongside that, right? Because there's always push and there's always challenge and all of that in running a business. But you kind of get to a point, especially, you know, we're 9 years in now, where there is like a sense of flow to your systems, your processes, your lead gen, all of that. When you're doing something new, you have to have a little bit more of that, like, that bite, that go get it kind
Grit.
of thing. Yes. And finding that again as somebody that loves push, drive, all of that stuff. It's something that I kind of like, not fallen out of love with, but I didn't have as much of necessity in. And so feeling that again, and that kind of just like
that inner inspiration, that inner spark, that inner fire, which you only get when you're living in your highest values, when you feel like you're on purpose, right? And you feel like I can't die with this music still inside me.
100%.
And what's so great is that so often when people find and tap that, I say most of the time, it is always to be in service of others. That's the deepest place that we can go into our purpose is I'm here to serve. And when the why is big enough, the how will figure itself out, 100%. Right? Not that the rubber doesn't have to meet the road. I love people who talk about manifesting and they're like, well, I made room on the other side of my bed for that person to come in. And I'm like, great. Are you going on dates? What does that mean? Like, are you going on dates?
Are you the type of person that you would want to date? Like what?
All the things, right? Like it does take action. Yes. The rubber's got to meet the road, right? But I think that something that my coach says to me all the time about what you're talking about the empty stage, that not you're on the stage and it's devoid of validation and appreciation and applause, right? Is two things. One is going this performance, right? This art, this gift, this offering, this service, this skill set, whatever it is, whether it's on a stage or, you know, working alone in your home or however it presents itself, that this is not mine. I am a tool for the universe to serve. So rather than going, oh God, please give me this thing I want. Oh God, please serve me. Please help me manifest this. Help me create this. Me, please, universe, me. Right? Instead, going, universe, let me get out of the way. I realize I'm trying to arm wrestle you. I will never win. Please use me to serve. Use me to serve the greater good. I might not even know what that looks like. Use me. Use 100%. Me to serve rather than serve me. And the other piece of it is, and this really harkens back to like inner child work and parts work and all of that stuff, but it's really walking off of that stage and feeling all of the sensations that are alive in your body, right? And instead of calling them shame or calling them disgrace or calling them unworthy or unlovable or, you know, a disappointment or whatever. Maybe you can recognize that those labels want to land there, right? Yeah. But just walking off that stage and seeing that it's just the little child in you that just wants love, that just wants to feel safe, that just wants to not only survive, but thrive and be loved and celebrated and all of those things in the fullness of who they are and what they've just shared with you about themselves. But for your healthy adult self to show up like you would if it was an actual little child coming to you and saying, none of that matters. Whether they applaud it or not, it actually has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. You're magnificent. High five me for the bravery of what you just did, for the beautiful gift that you just offered. I love you. Anything that you did out there is worthy of love. There is no way to measure what you just did. I'm so proud of you, kiddo.
Yes.
Right? Yes. And so approaching it from that place, even now in this adult business,
right.
I see you embodying that.
Thank you.
Right? And just going, yes, it's scary and I can do it anyway.
100%.
Right?
And like even the scary of like, because I think it's really easy to like look at somebody like you or I and be like, man, their self-talk has to be on point. Like, it's never negative, it's never bad, it's never harsh. I deal with that still all the time, like talking myself out of like the kind of negative spiral thought loop, right? Because it happens.
It's balanced.
Yeah.
It's a balancing act. And I think that that's what people, might miss when they look at somebody and, they have it all together. Nothing is one-sided in life. You cannot have a one-sided life, which is why I don't necessarily fully agree with, the positivity movement, right? Like the toxic positivity movement, right? Is because you cannot have a one-sided anything. What goes up must come down. Equal distance. For light, there is shadow. Equally.
My first tattoo was as above, so below. It's also the wand pattern for Lumos and Nox and Harry Potter. But, it's multi-meaning. But, like, you will experience, like, part of how you feel and experience and fully just soak in your highest highs because of the lowest low you've ever been to and how you walked yourself out of that. And then when you find yourself in that low again, one of my favorite memes is, like, going to rock bottom, because I understand how alchemy works, right?
Yeah.
Like, you will touch that again in a different way. And that doesn't mean the high wasn't real or that it didn't matter or that you're never going to touch that again. It just means that you're a human having a human experience.
That's right.
And I think one of the most feminine qualities is being able to do that as above, so below thing, to really walk down into the muck. It's like that late luteal phase, right? Where you're like, I am a gremlin, like experiencing that in life where you're just like, there's such beauty in the ugly space. Like being ugly, literally, emotionally, spiritually.
It's necessary.
Stunning.
That's what people don't understand all the time, is that it's necessary.
100%.
Fear is necessary.
Yes.
Judgment is necessary in our human form. You know why? Because it's what's going to keep me alive. It's going to keep me from, ew, I'm disgusted and I'm judging that rotten fruit. I'm not going to eat it.
Yes.
Right? Versus, ooh, I'm very turned on by that ripe, juicy, luscious fruit. I'm going to eat it and it's going to give me the sustenance that I need to survive and thrive. Right? It's the instinct to go, I'm not walking down that dark alley. Right? That fear is our friend protecting us. And it is necessary to experience that. If we were all positive all the time, you'd just be like, I'm going to skip down this alley.
And then you would walk off a cliff. Like,
right. Totally. Right.
It wouldn't be good.
Right. Oh, that fruit looks fine. I don't care. I'll just eat it.
Well, then how often too do we as women get in that space where we feel like it's not maybe a loud nudge of no, but we feel like that little teeny tiny one, and we ignore it. And we ignore it.
I'm so glad you're saying this. Okay, I'm going to say something.
Please.
Okay, here we go. I'm just going to say it out loud. So, did you ever see the movie The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo?
No.
Okay. Well, it's dark.
Yeah,
and very trigger warning on that movie. If you, but anyway, without spoiler alert, but there is a scene in that movie where the killer is identified. Daniel Craig has identified the killer, and he goes to the killer's house, and he's like looking around and like confirming his suspicions about this person. And as soon as he hears the person coming home, he runs out the back door to get out of the house in time. And he's like scurrying down the dark hill of the woods behind the house. And the killer comes out and goes, hey, what are you doing? And he says, oh, just out for a walk, sort of like panicking to like give a reasonable scenario. Yeah. And he says, well, come in. I have something important to talk to you about. And he says, oh, I don't know. And he says, no, come in. I'll pour you a drink. There's something really important. You're going to really want to hear this. And so Daniel Craig obliges and comes into the house to have this drink. The next thing you know, he's in a really bad situation.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I'm not going to go into the gory details. Again, I don't want to spoil it for you, but he is in a bad situation. This serial killer has him. And as he has him in this situation, the serial killer says to him, do you know how many people I've had in this exact situation? And do you know why they all end up in this situation? Politeness. It's typically women that are in this situation. I've never had a man in this situation before, but you did the same thing that they did. They don't want to turn down the invitation.
Mean. I don't want to be bitchy.
They don't want to turn down the invitation because they don't want to not be polite. Even though everything inside of them says, don't accept the invitation, they still do. And I think to myself, oh my God, if that's not a statement about our society, I don't know what is.
How willing how actually not willing, how terrified we are of letting someone down, being perceived in a way that we don't want to be perceived, that kind of thing.
The greatest pain we can experience is being misunderstood.
Yes. And so we will deny our own inner authority to avoid that.
And then we're not being authentically who we are.
Nope.
That's the cost, right? And that's what you're talking about. You're saying, I am going to, even way back on that radio show, I am going to stand unapologetically for people being authentically who they are. And that may come with being misunderstood. And that's okay. Because guess what? Balance. Some people are going to misunderstand you and some people are going to understand you. And that actually has nothing to do with you.
100%. I view people like brands, and one of my favorite phrases that like I've kind of come with in branding is good branding will not only attract the right people, but will fucking repel
the wrong ones. Let's go.
Like, and I have been very, like, I am a very polarizing person online, even though I don't really like do polarizing things. Like people, and I've had people come back to me, women, and say, I was really triggered by you at first and I couldn't explain why, so I just decided I didn't like you. But then and this is not like some like, woohoo, go me, like I'm a mirror for people, but like it's been a very uncomfortable experience for me as well. But like being like, you actually just showed me things about myself in whatever way that I didn't like seeing. And
by the by, everything can be that.
Yeah.
You could be a person who just posts memes of cats.
And people could be pissed. And there will be people that are pissed.
There are going to be people that are going to be in an uproar.
Yes.
A freaking uproar over the cat memes. So you got to do you. You know, there is no such thing as, you know, being liked by everybody, right? Perception and humanity just doesn't work like that.
Right.
So, okay, let's turn forward on the timeline.
I love it.
Let's face forward. What's on the horizon? What is coming into focus in the future?
Yeah. So I think in the future, obviously, you know, new offers coming, but I'm somebody that I get like very, on human design, I'm a projector, splenic authority. So I get just like gut feelings about things. And I always have had this thing for probably the last like 7-8 years when my life is about to take a really good turn. I feel it in my like digestion. It's like this just subtle shifting. And what I feel like is coming, this is maybe less specific or descript, but I truly feel like I'm stepping into next level of self in like that queen archetype kind of way, where it's so there is such a calmness and a flow and an ease to it, but it's that harmony of that flow and that ease, that queen archetype and the huntress archetype, which is what I really resonate with. So new offers, I really feel like at some point because I actually did a jewelry line at one point and I just didn't have the manpower to like run 2 businesses at one time.
Of course you did.
Of course I did. It sold out in 3 minutes. It was one of the most
doubt.
adrenaline-filled experiences of my life. But I feel like I really will do a product-based business again in probably like the next 5 to 10 years. I just feel like that's something that I should do.
We're going to sell boots and bras.
Yes. See, we
with our boots and bras.
We figured it out.
Podcast.
But it really does feel like a season of like, I've kind of been in like a quieter, more personal inner development space for probably the last like 3 to 4 years. And I feel like I'm really about to like foot to gas, letting the stallion out of the stable, like, you're going to hear from me.
Bull at the gate. Let's go.
Yep. And it just feels really good. It doesn't feel
charged
like
energy.
Yes. And it feels
but
like
still
it's coming,
grounded.
Yes, exactly. It feels really grounded and really, really humble. I think, you know, there were times when I was younger where I felt so invincible because I was doing so much and succeeding that there was almost potentially a little bit of arrogance in that of like, I can't fail kind of a thing. And then I failed. I got really sick from having breast implants. My life got turned upside down, like all of that. And I realized that I'm mortal, which sounds really silly because we all know that. But this next season of like that same kind of like, that same kind of bite and ferocity, just in a much more kind of like as above, so below, like the roots that are tying me to the ground are what helped me reach up here.
Yeah, I think that there is something to be said for healthy arrogance.
Yeah.
Healthy arrogance, right? Where it is a self-belief.
Yes.
Rather than an ego measurement of what's better than me, what's worse than me, right?
Yes.
But a healthy arrogance of I get to believe in myself.
Yes. I get to believe in the fullness of me. I think one kind of evolution of like that confidence, that arrogance has really been feeling super grounded in all of my imperfections, like all of the things where I'm like, hey, this is something that I'm working on. This is something that I'm getting better at. This is maybe a weakness that I've had, and not trying to ignore that because of all these other great things that I have going on for me, but holding both of those in balance and having that be kind of the tension of opposites that keeps my world spinning.
Yeah. And I think that the ability to be healthfully arrogant like that, again, it comes back to this idea of balancing our human nature, right? Which is a little bit more egoic and is a little bit more strategic. I mean, has to be,
Yes.
right? Because we are very limited and very finite in our physical human selves, right? In time and space. But on a soul level, right? That purpose-driven level, that use me to serve part of ourselves, that infinite soul source of unconditional love part of ourselves that does house our purpose and our highest values, and knows that whatever I do or don't do in this life, it's not about me. It's something greater. It's right. It's like, it's almost like Tosha Silver's book, like, it's not your money. Right.
Ooh, I love that.
But it's just this idea of like, I don't have to own any of it. Egoically, I don't have to make any of it mean anything about me.
Yeah.
I can just do the thing and offer the thing and not make how it's received a measurable thing by the feedback that I get or the response that I get or don't get. Right. It all circles back to that. Right. Which is, I get to be authentically me. I get to serve the way that I've been, asked to serve, with the skills that I have, with the tools that I have, with the, everything at my, help me with the word.
Fingertips? Disposal?
Yes. Fingertips. Disposal.
Fingertips.
Fingertips. Disposal. Wait, how am I supposed to beatbox? Boots and cats. Boots and cats.
Yep.
Boots and cats.
Yep.
Anyway, we're learning all kinds of things here, people. Bloopers galore. We're not even gonna edit it out because
No.
this is how things
This is
happen.
life.
This is life. This is
how it
magic in
goes.
real time.
100%.
But anyway, yes, at our disposal. And I think that is such a take home message. Like, put that in your doggy bag and take it home, people.
Yes.
Because it is a practice, right? Like, to go back to that, like, people think we have it all together. It's like, no, we have horrible thoughts all the time.
All the
We have
time.
self-defeating thoughts all the time.
Or
Our
there's-
inner bully acts up all the time.
Or there will be like a day when somebody, sends like a mean message or a mean comment, and it gets to you that day, and you're
Totally.
like, oh, like that really like poked at something in me, or it was just like a rough day.
Or
I'm like,
something you're working on that you have high hopes for falls apart, or
Yeah.
whatever. It happens all the time. Nothing is one-sided. Nothing is quote unquote perfect. But it's the balancing act of bringing in the alternative. What else is possible? So, if I think this sucks, on the other side of it, there has to be some greatness
100%.
because it can't exist otherwise.
Oh, 100%. I'll leave like with a little nugget.
Yeah.
There was a time when I was going through like a major existential crisis when I was like 27, as one does. And
Saturn
I was,
return. Yeah.
She is returning. We're still there. We are still there, right?
Hey.
Right? Oh, we love it. But I had a friend who was just like sitting with me in some really hard spaces, and I was talking about just like all of the different things that were coming up for me as fears and like what I was afraid of doing or experiencing and all of that. And she just asked me, she's like, what do you think is on the other side of all of that fear? And I just immediately go without thought, everything that I want.
There we go.
So show up. Like the boldest thing that you can do and the biggest act of self-love and the biggest builder of self-trust and confidence is showing up when you're scared and when you want to just like, come back in that little space.
Yeah, it's that feel the fear and do it anyway. I'm currently talking my little 6-year-old through his transition into kindergarten, and he is absolutely terrified. And it's about validating his feelings and showing up to love and appreciate what his experience is of all of his big feelings. And at the same time, teaching him that he can do hard things.
Yes.
Teaching him that you can feel the fear and do it anyway. And trying to explore with him what else is possible. You can feel the fear, but we have this cognitive dissonance. You can also feel the confidence at the same time. And how are we going to access that? And, it's a journey. It's a journey. I'm 45 and I'm his mother and I'm still doing it for myself.
Right. But what a good example for him to have, you know, like
here's hoping,
dude. Well, like I really feel like
I'll circle back with you when he's,
let us know. Give us
when
like,
you know,
we'll talk about it on
when
Boots and
he's
Bras
sitting
in
on
like
the,
10 years.
we'll talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's going to be like one of the things that, you know, when somebody's interviewing him one day or talking to him one day about like, oh, what's one thing from your childhood that changed your life? And it's going to be like, oh yeah, when I was learning how to go to kindergarten and my mom taught me that, you know, hey, I can be scared and still show up. And that's going to be something that sticks. Because those are the things that are so copy pastable to every area of life. And building confidence in somebody that young, like
totes. And you know, it's the same thing as like I had cancer. It was scary.
Yeah.
Doing chemo, especially the first time. Oh my God, petrifying. You feel the fear and you do it anyway because the why is so important. The why is my health and my longevity and my ability to see my kids dance at their weddings, assuming they have them. You know, it's like you've got to find that big, big, big why. It's worth it to feel the fear and do it anyway. That's a really good bookmark right on that. Okay, so I'm going to pull around to our final question. I want you to imagine there's a mirror and you are gazing into that mirror. Maybe it's full length. Maybe it's just your face. Up to you. You're going to gaze into that mirror and you are going to have a look at me now moment. From that, not that external gaze of look at all you people that shamed me, look at all you people that didn't believe in me, look at all you people that harmed me. No, it has nothing to do with them. This is between you and you. And it's that moment of looking in the mirror and having a moment of seeing yourself, validating yourself, saying no matter what I've done or not done, I am worthy of love. I am worthy of validation. I am worthy of all the rewards that come with really being accepted for exactly who I am and what I have experienced without changing a thing. To be able to look at yourself and say, thank you, I love you. Right? So if you have this opportunity in this mirror to reflect a look at me now moment to yourself, what is it that you want to say?
Yeah. Oh, I'm making like a little emotional. We love that. Everything that you've ever wanted, you've created. And you've created it for yourself. You've created it for other people. And like, this is where it gets much like, look at the abundance you've created, not just for yourself, but for other people. And how incredible that is. How I have so much, like if I could look 20-year-old me in the face, they always say that like, you're the person that younger you looked up to. I look up to younger me, like 20-year-old me, like, I love you so much. I'm so proud of you. I'm so inspired by you because you never let anything stop you and you've always figured it out. And look what you've been able to create with that.
That's chills.
Such a good question. Oh my God.
I have chills. And you know why? Because you're being honest. Thank you for that.
Thank you for asking. What a beautiful invitation. I love it.
Everybody, get out your mirrors.
Yeah.
Have a moment.
Yes.
Be honest. Be real about it.
I think it's so cool to like envision, and I'll shut up after this, but like being able to look yourself in the eyes because your eyes don't change all that much. So you can see so many. I can see 4-year-old, 8-year-old, 12-year-old, 15, 20, 21. Like I can see that here.
All the women you are because it's all the women you've been. I love it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad we were here at the same time.
I mean, let's freaking go. Okay, so wait, I'm not letting you go yet because I need people to be able to find you, to connect with you, to commune with you in space and time, know, vibes. So, because you are like the mistress of vibes. I think you and I share that quality, but
We're vibe girls.
We're vibe girls.
The girls deserve a vibe.
Let's vibe.
I fully believe it.
Boots and bras.
No, I'm so serious. Like, I will be messaging you.
Let's do
Chase.
this.
I'm going to be like, hey, guys.
Let's go.
So we started a thing. Because I love talking. I love talking, and I love talking with people where talking is easy, and talking is very easy here. And it's just fun. Again, vibes. Girls
Vibes.
But if you would like more of my vibes, the main hub for everything for me is Instagram. It's just at @em_dunk. So EM_DUNC. From there, you can find everything. You can find Fenix. If you're looking for Fenix, it's Fenix, FENIX_Athletica on Instagram. Or
How vibey is that?
Well, you see the whole thing. It was very intentional because I was like, oh, we work with women, FE. We're primarily a strength-focused company, iron, FE. Like, we usher people through transformation. Like, every part of it was really thought out up here. Like, so thank you. That really means a lot.
Strategery.
Very strategic.
Very into
The
it.
logo is a molecular structure looking of phoenix wings.
Of course it is.
Yes. So,
Science
like,
and soul, people. Science and soul.
I love that you know the motto. Oh, so good.
Because, by the way, same motto for Soul Sway, where science meets soul. Let's go. Let's go.
Same person.
Same person.
I love it.
Same person.
This makes me really excited to be 45 because I feel like I am looking in a mirror and I'm like, it's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic.
You know, 45 is fabulous.
I really feel like
Don't let anybody steer you wrong.
Oh, I fully believe it.
Aging with grace.
I love it.
We love it.
But yes, Instagram, that's where you can find everything. EmBody Radio, anywhere you listen to podcasts, that's where all the other vibes are. But I would love to have you. If you come from here, shoot me a message. I am one of those people that like I say hi to everyone when they come into my community because I want to talk to you.
Let's go.
So don't be like, oh my God, big, scary, like content creator person. Like, no, let's just talk, vibe, all the time. That's why I
Let's
do
just
it.
drop in.
Yeah.
Let's go deep.
Yes.
Let's go deep real fast. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for just #going there.
Love it.
And gosh, boots and bras. I mean, I just, there has to be more. So maybe it is boots and bras. But everybody, thank you for dropping in on this episode. And I love you. And I'll see you next time.
And before we head out, you deserve your flowers too. You are a great host. It's so fun to be doing this with you. So just fantastic on everything that you've been through to get to where you are and the way that you show up here. It really means a lot to me. So
oh my gosh, received. Those flowers smell and look delicious. I'm receiving them. Thank you. All right, for real this time. We out. Bye, y'all. Join us for Look at Me Now, wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to share, like, and subscribe.